Welcome back, everyone. This is One Mic Night Talk. I'm Marcos-Luis, and today we are One Mic Night Talking. Of course, I'm here with your favorite co-host of One Mic Night Talk. He is the licensed clinical psychotherapist and author of the book, The Mental Health Pandemic. It's Shane Mark Tull. Welcome back, Doctor.
Well, it's good to be back. How are you?
So good to see you. Thank you for joining me. I know you have to take some
Awesome.
time out of your schedule, but it's always a pleasure to have you. And
Thank you.
everybody loves the information that you're giving. So thank you for spending some time with us here at One Mic Night.
Awesome.
So before we get started, I want to give a little information on what we're doing today. June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. So for those of you who don't know, Men's Mental Health Awareness Month started back in the early 2000s, where men focus on their well-being, destigmatizing mental health, and overall good mental hygiene. So today we're going to highlight some of the challenges that men have with good mental health, and I'm going to list those for you, and we're just going to dive in and talk about them. And as they come up, you'll know what we mean. The five most common things that men have problems with are: one, anxiety; two, depression; three, substance abuse; four, challenges in the workplace; and five, relationship challenges. So we're going to start off and see what the doctor has to say about it. What do you think overall for men? Just in general, men have probably the highest anxiety and highest mental health problems as anybody.
I think we don't have the agency as men to talk about our mental health. Well, I mean, we don't even have the agency to talk about our feelings.
Absolutely.
So when we're in a space in a society where we're not expected to talk about what we're feeling. We're not supposed to talk about it because it shows a sign of weakness. And
Yes.
I think that fosters the whole toxic masculinity issue that we encounter. And I believe if those five things that you mentioned that impacts men and our mental health, our relationship, workplace, anxiety, depression, but we have nowhere to talk about it. We don't have safe spaces where we can go and have conversations. And if you think of black and brown men, that where are they going to go talk about this? Are there places that they can go and talk about it that is constructive, that is supportive? So I believe that being the awareness of mental health among men is imperative. But I also think that we need to create the spaces where you and I can meet and have these conversations and talk about how we're feeling and our fears or insecurities because we're human beings. We have lots of those things, but we just don't have a support network
Absolutely. I agree with you
to
100%.
reach out and talk about it.
Absolutely. And I think that's why this whole thing was started. This whole month was started to bring the awareness, but now we actually need to find the solution to it. And everybody knows on this show, that's what we do when we come together and we talk about mental health. It's not so much about just the dialogue. We want to find reasons. We want to take action with our conversation.
Yeah, we want to create a movement and to destigmatize the whole issue of mental health, especially among men, but more importantly, among men of color, because I think we are most challenged by it. And there's less resources out there for it. Like, if you go in psychology today and look for a black male therapist, we're very few and far between.
Absolutely
And
right.
and, and I mean just right in New York City.
Right.
We're very few and far between. So that in itself speaks volumes.
Right. And I think along with what you just said, first of all, taking the step to get some sort of mental help and therapy, you want to find somebody who's like-minded with you, somebody you feel comfortable with, somebody who you can express yourself. And the biggest culprit of it all, I feel, is, like you said, support. We need support, not only from our partner, but we need support from family, from friends, from the society to let us know that it's okay. And I
Yeah,
think just in the last couple of years, we've gotten to a point in society where mental health is important and people are
correct.
coming forward to talk about different things to get the support and therapy that they need, whatever that may be, whatever form that may come in.
Yeah.
But just having the support and knowing that it's okay to talk about the challenges that you have every day, even every minute in your life, to help solve the problems.
And we also have to think about the suicide rate among men. The suicide rate among African American men, it's between 18 to 25, and then older 55 and over. We really need to look at what is that about. But I believe when you go back and you look at the messages men get at very early ages, they're young, they fall down, they bruise their foot, they get up, start crying. They get these very clear message: boys don't cry, men don't cry, be a man, do this, do
Right.
that. And then there are a lot of young men that are being raised by single mothers, and that's a challenge for that mom. And in a way, indirectly, they began to look at this young man coming up as like a substitute parent, or they
Right.
treat them like their husbands and not as children, and not in terms of giving them the skill sets and the things they need, like enrolling them in basketball and football and probably young therapy groups for young men, so they don't feel isolated. I think one of the things with young men of color, they feel very isolated,
Yes, for sure.
especially if they're trying to pursue an education or a career or a specific discipline that is normally not what we would do. But I believe that it's imperative that we give them that agency, that you are authentic, you are valid, your beliefs is valid, and the fact that you are here on this earth is a contribution to humanity. And our job is to lift you up to your highest potential, to see how you can continue to contribute to humanity. And we do that by contributing to our families, communities, and the society at large.
Absolutely. And I think you said something, and I want to add on to it too, because most of us have a single parent growing up as men of color.
Mm.
It's a challenge for the mother, but it's also a challenge for the child, because the child then feels like, where do I fit in with a group of men or young boys? I don't know how to, you know, feel comfortable because there are no men in my household. So that's a
Mhm.
challenge in itself, to feel comfortable in a group of people, which is why, like you said, sports are important. It's important to be around a group of young men pursuing, championships and games, and learning how to be a team player and
Right.
talking and having camaraderie with, other young men.
Yeah.
That's important.
It's interesting. I was having this conversation with my son last night. He's 28, 29. And his pushback was like, Dad, yes, we're talking more. Where he said, I can talk to my friends about my relationships, and I get a sense of support. So that gives me real hope that if young men are talking about their emotions with their friends, and they're getting that support, then the message is it's getting through there. So I really want to I want to recognize that and point that out. And I also want us not just to talk about all of the pathology that affects our community and affects us as men, but really talk about our resilience.
Yes. Yes.
How did you survive this experience called malehood or Black malehood? And what were some of the things you pulled on? Also, who were your support systems? How did you get through that? And that was the conversation I was having with my son. He's like, well, I had you. He said, a lot of my friends didn't have a dad.
Which is a
And,
beautiful thing. Right.
yeah. And he said, I had a dad, and we had privilege. We travel. I went to good schools. You're part of a big families. I always felt connected to this thing that was bigger than me. And he said that's what kept him really stable in a way. So I was really moved to hear that he recognized that life is bigger than him, and to get through this thing we call life, we need we need our village to stand with us and support us.
Absolutely. I think that one of the things that happens when we don't have those villages is one of the aforementioned things, is then, which has become very common now in society, is substance abuse.
Mhm.
I think the substance abuse, I don't care if it's legal, and we all know what I'm talking about. Whatever you do, that's your business. But I do feel like that abusing substances is deteriorating your mental health, your motivation, your drive to pursue things in life that will move you forward.
But it's a way it's the way we self-medicate. We're in pain, we're lost, so we smoke some weed.
Right. Right.
And you feel a little better. And tomorrow, 2 days later, you don't feel the same way, smoke some more weed.
Right.
And before you know it, it's a habit.
Right.
So,
and so where does that leave us?
not in a good place, but really, I see it as an opportunity for us to have conversations. And I really think having intergenerational conversations among men is extremely therapeutic and important. I think if you get a group of 20-year-old men and 40-year-old men in a room together and having real conversation, there is a lot to be learned.
Do you feel like the intergenerational, I'm sorry to cut you off. Do you feel like intergenerational conversations are always combative? Because I feel like the younger generation now, they always feel like that the older generation has something against them. So there's always some sort of, it's always meeting with some sort of contrast.
Yes.
Between the two.
And I think that's the opportunity for learning and growth, because our goal is to let them know we're not against you. And and they also, oh, well, you guys didn't do it right. The environment is a mess. And my pushback is like, now that we're here, how can we do this together?
Yes.
Because I need you, you need me. I need your ambitiousness and your drive and all the things that you bring. But you also need my wisdom, and you probably need some of my guidance. So where can we meet and have these conversations and make it powerful and not? And that's how you started that movement. That we need allies, and we need to. There are things that we may not agree on, but let's work on the things that we can agree on and amplify that and move forward. Because as you said, those intergenerational conversations can be very heated and combative.
Yes.
But I always feel that I want you to be heard. I want young folks to shake up the room and make us older folks a little uncomfortable. That's fine.
Right. And it's about going into, yeah, exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth. It's about actually going into the conversation with both parties with an open mind and using it as a learning opportunity.
Yeah, so that's a space we need to create.
Right.
Where we meet together and let us each other know that we're here to support each other, not to tear each other down, but to support each other. And that in itself creates a good mental health space.
Right. And how do we do that? Do you have any tips on how we can do that? How would you, as a father, create that, space and that dialogue, a safe space with your son or with your nephew or someone you're mentoring or someone younger? How do we create those spaces?
So I just invited them over and have a conversation. Hey, come over. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation, or let's go to a sports bar. Because you go to the barber shop, because a lot of therapy goes on between the barber shop
Absolutely.
and the sports bar.
Right.
Because that's where men feel comfortable. And I met a young man in Guyana, and he had this intervention where he would go to the bars, invite men, buy drinks, and they just have these conversations about manhood and your fears and your insecurities. But what we also saw that the fact that the space was created, they showed up, they spoke, they participated, they supported each other. And I thought that was so innovative.
I think it is too.
You meet them where they are.
Of course.
Men at the sports bar. That's where you go.
Have a drink, have some conversation, get in there a sports bar where everybody likes sports. All the guys like sports. We like to watch sports and have some conversation, find out what's going on, make it a comfortable space for both parties.
Yes. And also give young people credit.
Right.
They're extremely brilliant. They're really, even with their arrogance. But then you have to think 20 years ago, our fathers probably thought we were quite arrogant too. Yeah. So it's really about
a sign of a time change.
And recognizing that they have a voice and it's valid. let them speak.
Absolutely. Do you feel like that in the last couple of years, we've gotten to a place where more of those groups have popped up and where people are more receptive to do things like that?
I think people
Like,
are more
mhm.
receptive. I just think that we have to not make it a one-off, like you just do it this month or you just do it because it's mental health awareness month and we don't do it again until next year.
Right.
If you do once gathering every other month and you kind of make this space where this is your space. It could be at the barbershop, it could be at the sports bar, it could be at the church hall that has a men group, and you really have those conversations. Creating the space is important. If the space is created, people will come. That's been my experience. People will show up, men will show up, and they will share, and they will support each other.
You're absolutely right. And you hit the key point. It's not just June that we're doing this. This goes along with any kind of mental health hygiene that you want to have. It's on a regular basis. It's not just once a month. It's not just one time of the year. You have to be consistent. There's some consistency that goes along with it.
Because mental health is health, and we have to take care of our health and attend to our health every day. So we need to do the same with our mental health. It's important that we stay very much aware of it and but also be supportive to each other and with each other. And you haven't talked to someone for a while, give them a call. Hey, let's meet up and have coffee or go for a walk. And I mean, these are things that you can go for a long walk and talk with someone. One, you're both getting exercise. Two, you're talking. It brings down that anxiety, and you kind of get to realize that the challenges they're going through, we're all going through those challenges, and it makes you that you no longer feel alone. Because I think when we're going through challenges, we really believe we're the only person that's going through it, and the reality is every other man you meet, they're going through
Absolutely.
anxiety, depression,
Yep.
insecurity, issues with their mom or the dad, or having struggles with their children. Like I was having a conversation a few years ago with my son smoking weed with some of my fellow clinicians. And one day I was like, oh, Shane, don't worry about it. He'll be fine. My daughter's in her second bout in rehab. And I'm thinking, really? Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So it's really, as parents, we're going through a lot. I think young people go through a lot,
Mhm.
but I think as a parent,
On the flip side, yep.
you have that anxiety, you have that constant anxiety all the time there, especially if you're parenting a black man. That I don't sit comfortable until my son texts me and says, Dad, I'm home. And he lives in the Midwest.
Absolutely.
Because I know the possibilities that what can happen to him
We've
when from the
all
time he leaves his house.
we have all had that talk.
Yeah.
Well, sit tight, everybody. In a minute, we're going to come back because there are more challenges that we're going to go through. So we're back. And there are a couple of other challenges that we have, and I'll name those and we can talk about those as well. One is loneliness. Two is the suicide risk factor that increases. One we mentioned before is the fatherhood challenge, and that's on both sides, being a son and a father, and body image. Those create mental health problems. What do you say about those?
We're all struggling with all the above. Okay.
Absolutely.
We really are. And it's if you're not happy with your body image, start walking, start exercising, eat better.
I think more now than ever, I'm sorry to cut you off, but more now than ever, I think that has been a huge problem. We see in the news that social media has created problems with that.
Yes.
We see
Yeah.
that, men more than ever want to be muscular. They want to be athletic. Or you go into the gym. You always
Uh-huh.
see the influencers on social media that have these perfect bodies, weight gain, lean muscle. All those products are flying off the shelf.
Oh yeah.
that creates an enormous amount of pressure
And
on
all,
adolescents and
and
adults.
correct, yeah. I think social media have just escalate our anxieties about our body images because it's everything is lean, buff, beautiful, all that stuff. And if you're not that, I think the message that you get is that you you're not valid.
You're not
It
valid.
doesn't matter.
Yes, that's
You're
right.
not valid. So it's imperative that we have a personal sense of value, that you can be 300 pounds and still be a valuable human being, contributed member of society, and love yourself and feel okay about that. Because not everybody really wants to be skinny.
Right. You're right.
So
And I see a
most
huge
of us do, however, but hey.
right. And I feel like, even though that type of thing has been happening in the last few years, there's been an increased, awareness of inclusivity. And you see the people on TV as models who are, you know, bigger, who
Uh-huh.
are not, like the typical runway models. They're
Correct.
including everyone in there so you see the representation of who you are. So the
Correct.
struggle has hopefully decreased and you feel your value increase.
And and it's imperative that representation matters. If I see someone that looks as a teenager, if I see someone that looks like me on TV, that tells me, hey, that is something I can aspire to be, someone I can aspire to be. So it's imperative that we have good representations.
Absolutely. Now, I know for fact that the suicide risk for men is higher than women.
Mhm.
50% of the world is men, but 80% the suicide. That's huge. That's huge because of all these factors.
Correct. And also men, what they do to harm themselves is much more drastic.
Hmm.
If a man decides to die by suicide, the the road he would take, or for example, a man would more shoot himself.
Yeah.
A woman may take sedatives, and probably someone will find her. But most men, they take really drastic added
Right.
ways, like jumping out a window, jumping over a bridge, shooting themselves. Very violent ways of doing
And
things.
in addition to that, I'm going to add on to that, not only suicide, but actually mass shootings are
Correct.
mostly men. So they're not
Correct.
only taking their own lives, but the
Correct.
the anxiety and the depression and all these other things that they have,
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
taking it out on other people,
Yeah.
which is
Very
why
angry.
very angry, which is why the importance of what we're talking about, the therapy or talking to someone and the support and recognizing people who need the support as preventive measures for these things to happen. Now, whether you use drugs to, to subside that, or what we talked about before, yoga, uh, group chats, those things, but there are things that we need to do to help prevent those.
And I really think it's about, if you recognize someone is struggling, reach out to that person. Reach out, you get a body of people that are supportive, and do an intervention. Let them know we care about you. We see these marked changes in your behavior. We're concerned. We want to help you. How can we support you? And I
Absolutely.
think that is extremely meaningful when we're able to do that.
Right. And one of those things might be even the loneliness that I mentioned before. If you see
Yes.
someone who's isolated themselves, that's a sign. That could
Yeah,
be a sign.
and also men, as we get older, we isolate even more.
Right.
Our friends move away or die, or you just don't stay connected anymore, and we just tend to isolate. So we have to be very conscious of that as well, that being involved means a lot. If you're feeling lonely, you can join a book club, you can go to your local wherever. Volunteer work is could be very fulfilling. you
Right.
know Go to the library and volunteer, or there's always something in your community that you can contribute to. you
Right.
know just go to church, attend the groups after. There's you know volunteer to sweep the church, sweep the yard, do things to make you not just active, but also where you're appreciated and
Absolutely.
where people look forward to seeing you and kind of hold you accountable. Because
Right.
also, I think we need to hold each other accountable when we're in a space where we have to be, we have to perform, and we have to support. I believe that compassion and accountability are two things that can go hand in hand. So
Right.
if someone is struggling, we want to support them, but we
Yes.
also want to hold them accountable for what they're going to do, what they're going to bring to this dynamic, or are they really committed in their healing? So holding them accountable to that is also important. And
It
I really
works.
think we
Mhm.
need to address the issue where the the acceptance of drug use has become so commonplace or so socially acceptable, maybe lack of a better word, that we don't feel it's our place to talk to someone that we know or see is going out of control. Because when I talk with young people, they're like, it's just like how you have wine and you have cocktail. Young people are doing drugs and they don't want to be judged, and I'm thinking, so we should just stand by and let someone fall apart and just
Right.
leave them alone
Continue to
because
do it.
they don't
Yeah.
want to be judged. And I really have issues with that.
Right. You said it. It's accountability from the person who's doing it and the person who's there for support, which you should be. You should be monitoring these things and, especially as young people, because you don't think as a young person for the long-term effects. Even as adults, you don't think of the long-term effects. Even if it's legalized, smoking, what are the long-term effects? It has to be doing something to your lungs, first of all. There's no
Thank
way
you.
that it can't be. It doesn't matter if it's organic, it's from the earth. What is it doing to your lungs? What is it doing to your brain? The research hasn't been done, but you can only imagine what is it doing? What do you feel
Correct.
like when you're on it? If
Correct.
it's taking you away from the normal thought pattern, unless it's, monitored by medical for a doctor for a reason,
Correct.
really need to consider some things before you do those things.
But it's no longer a taboo. It's feels like everyone is doing it and it's okay. And it's cool to do it. And people are vaping and doing hookah and all that stuff. It's just everybody's just doing what they want to do. And
Societably acceptable.
correct,
Right.
unfortunately,
But
but we're not paying attention to the detriment of that in the long run.
right. And that's the key.
Correct.
Well, I want to leave everybody with that because I want people to think about how important it is for mental health awareness, especially the men this month. Please make sure you get some help. Please make sure you check in with yourself and let others check in with you. Let them know how they can get in touch with you, Doctor.
Shane Tull Clinical Psychotherapy on Facebook and Instagram. And I just want to say Mental Health Awareness Month for men is imperative. I want men to realize that they are valid, they are valued. What they bring to humanity is imperative, especially, I think, in the climate that we're living in, men of color, the challenges that are on the horizons for us as we get closer to elections, to be very conscious of voting. That is in, that also adds to your mental health, because if you vote for the wrong person or you didn't vote at all and the wrong person gets in, will be penalized for that. So you want to be very conscious of that, but also be gentle to yourselves. But it's important to also to be gentle to others. Thank you.
Absolutely. And on your journey, please be gentle. I do also want to say that if you need some help, you can always call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. The number is 1-800-273-8255, or you can text the crisis text line at home, HOME, 741741. The number will be in the notes of the show. Please make sure you take care of yourself. Thank you to Shane Martoll. Please check out his book, The Mental Health Pandemic. And thank you for joining us for OneMicNite Talk. Until next time, we'll see you. I'm Marcoso-Luis. Bye-bye.
All right, take care.